I'm not an artist. What is an artist? I'm glad you asked, Alan.
Oh, wait a minute. Hey, Chris, what's an artist?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Alan. In the 1500s, St. Francis of Assisi said,
I did not expect that to come out of your mouth.
I am full of fucking surprises, baby. St. Francis of Assisi.
You've been waiting
with
all
the F word.
day to throw that out at me.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. All right.
TikTok was invented for you, though, because you've got that attention span.
You know what? They moved it to 3 minutes.
You probably get bored at TikTok now.
At 3 minutes, they moved it where you can put a 3-minute thing out there. And Edwin McCain says, well, good news is I got 3 minutes to tell my story. I'm like, nope. You got 15 seconds, Edwin. And that's, I'm walking to Memphis. You know that guy? You know who Edwin McCain is?
Yeah.
Yeah. He is, he's on TikTok, and he is interesting. But I got 3 minutes. I'm like, nope, not for this guy. Move, next.
Makes me wonder where we're going to be in 10 years with all that.
Oh, it's soundbite management the whole way. I mean, this is...
At some point, there's going to be this new thing about really long stories.
Ed, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Alan. Here we go. Again, another episode in the podcast. Before we get started, one of the things we talked about is why do we do this podcast? Why are we doing this whole thing? And we're trying to give back to people our experiences. But where is our attention span? And have you heard the phrase that we have the attention span of a goldfish?
Yeah, a gnat. Right, yes.
7 seconds. Where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years? So this morning I was with a group of other entrepreneurs and I was talking about my book and very excited about telling everybody about it. And I literally had one guy look at me and said, I am so impressed that you wrote a book. I'm like, that's so cool. He goes, I will never read it. I said, thank you. He said, I don't have the attention span to read it. He said, you put it on audiobook and I'll listen to it. I said, well, I'll do you one better. Go to our podcast because this thing is freaking dynamite, baby. Because you can take that in small bites while you're riding down the road and doing whatever, riding in the subway, going in the car, doing whatever you got to do.
Look at Chris, just always selling.
I am always selling.
But I thought you were going to say, he's like, I can't believe you wrote a book.
Oh, he did say, did you get help? I said, obviously, I looked like I needed help.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that's probably...
I told him it's a hard process for anybody ever thinking about doing it. One of the things a great stat is that 1% of people who actually think about writing a book actually do it. 99% of the people who say, I wish I wrote a book, won't ever do it. And in the world today, very few people write books. But when you write the book, you publish a book, and you start looking at all the other people who've done it and how much better they are than you, you have such an inferiority complex.
It seems like everybody wrote a book.
It does. I feel like that too. When I wrote it, I was like, oh my God, I'm just another one. But I really think my book,
so when you autograph your book now, did you like make your signature just big and obnoxious like John Hancock?
I have a big obnoxious signature because I do think I'm that freaking important.
Yeah.
I've said that before. In fact, one of the favorite lines one of my guys says is one of the times that we were in training, I got up there and started talking, and two of the guys in the back were talking. I'm like, hey, wait, you guys done? Because when I talk, I think I'm pretty fucking important. And they always remember that.
Yeah. Enough about me. Let's talk about me. What are we talking about today, Chris?
Ellen, I want to talk about...
That was a nice big pull on that beer, by the way.
He got me mid-pull. And today we're drinking...
No. We're drinking the beer I brewed.
Rogue.
No, it isn't Rogue. It's me. It's Allen beer.
Allen beer. Allen is a home brewer, as we've established earlier, not a micro brewer.
I'm not a craft brewer. I think that means you did something professional. But yeah, I brew beer and cider.
Well, if you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and send me an email, chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. That's chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. And if you want to know how to brew your own beer, you can send us an email, and we'd love to talk about that. Because Alan just hijacked the whole podcast talking about his brewing. No, we love that. We have it every time we talk. We get together. We love talking over beers. We're really just, as Alan has said, two knuckleheads talking over beers. And today,
Yes,
I want to hit one
for any advice that we've given because it's beer infused.
It's beer infused advice, and there's been plenty of failures along the way with everything I've ever done. So that's always good.
We both have learned every lesson the absolute hardest way, which is the beauty of this podcast.
I think so. I did have somebody say that the other day to me. It's like, I like how you bring in and you're kind of self-effacing and bring up all the problems you had. I said, well, it's because I've had them all.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I'm trying to put those in on purpose. It's just because that's what I've had, man.
Yeah. And after a while, you just get numb to them. Really? Is that all you got? There's blood all over the place? Yeah. No big deal.
To train or not to train. So you've brought your team in, you bring them in, you do your thing. You're running your company. I don't know if you're 5 people, you're 10 people, you're 50 people. Hell, you're 1,000 people.
Why would you not train?
Because you don't want to. Think about it for a minute. If you have training, you're 2 people. I convinced somebody to come work for my company. Am I really going to have a 1-hour training, one-on-one with him once a week, where I sit there and bring him into my culture and do all this other stuff? Because I'm the owner and I've got to do it. And now not only I got to go out there and sell. I might be answering the phone calls and I'm trying to make it all happen. But now I got to develop training for you. And I didn't really develop training for 1, 2, 3, 4. But when I got to the 5 and 6 model, I was like, it's time to start doing some training. And it was all on me to do the training. What am I training on? Well, I'm not training them to be better at their craft, whatever it may be. And so I'm in home services. That's the business I picked. But where I had come from before, a lot of people work for me around the IT world. And I'm not going to train them to be a better COBOL, C++, JavaScript train. I didn't know how to do all that stuff. What am I going to train them on? So I had to figure out the training I was going to do. And then, do I really want to take them off the keyboard? Or in my case, in home services, do I want to take them out of the field for a billable hour for me to train them? It's up to me. Screw it. Just go out there and do it, man. Go. Come on. Let's go. Get after it.
What's the downside of that? I'm playing, dumb here.
Yeah. So the downside is they don't go out there and treat the customer the way you wanted to. They don't go out there and feel like they're part of the bigger team. They don't go out there and feel like they're getting rewarded for their artistry.
It's just another job.
It's just a job. I'm just a tool in the field. I'm not an artist. What is an artist? I'm glad you asked, Alan.
Oh, wait a minute. Hey, Chris, what's an artist?
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Alan. In the 1500s, St. Francis of Assisi said.
I did not expect that to come out of your mouth.
I am full of fucking surprises, baby. St. Francis of Assisi.
You've been waiting all day to throw that out at me.
I have been. You all ready? Pick this one up.
All right.
And I just dropped a y'all. Wow.
A y'all and an F-bomb in the same sentence.
And I'm about to quote St. Francis of Assisi.
I think the world is
my
about to
priest
end.
is absolutely rolling over in his grave right now.
Yeah, you're going to need do a few more rosaries on this one. But go ahead.
Everybody ready?
Yep.
St. Francis of Assisi said this. And here we go. I'm going to say it very slowly. If you work with your hands, you are a laborer. If you work with your head in your hands, you are a craftsman. If you work with your heart, your head, and your hands, you are an artist. And my response to that is, go be an artist today. Because if you're just a tool in the field, if you're just putting your hands on a keyboard, if you're just answering a phone, if you're just going to fix somebody's drywall, if you're just going to go change out a hot water heater, you're just a tool in the field. And then we talked about this before, and you brought this one up. I'll get to it in a minute. But if you work with your head in your hands, you're a craftsman. Many of our guys think that they're craftsmen. But if you really pour your heart into it, you're an artist. And so you say, well, let's go to the easy one, Simon Sinek, and the why. Mm-hmm. Or, as Alan brought up, the JFK story, when he comes in and he famously asked the janitor at the Space Center.
Yeah, Space Center. Oh,
what are you doing? He said, I'm putting a man on the moon.
Yep.
That's your why. Our artists need to know that that's what they're doing. Because isn't it better to wake up every morning and know today you're about to be an artist? Instead of some tool in the field.
Do they all respond to that?
The guys respond to it because they know I've got their back. Because I have lone wolves. So what are lone wolves? Lone wolves are guys or ladies, it doesn't matter, who have foraged on their own, have recreated on their own. That's PC for effing. They have sheltered on their own, but they have taken care of themselves on their own.
Thanks for holding back that one F word.
I did.
Dropping three.
I think it would just be explicit, like with a PG in there.
Semi-explicit.
Semi-explicit. But that's what lone wolves do. They know how to do that. So when you invite them into your wolf pack, you say, look, I'm not going to domesticate you. I'm not going to force a bunch of process on you. I'm not going to choke you down and domesticate you. And so where am I going with that whole analogy is that if you've ever looked back on history, today's dogs, domesticated dogs, all came from undomesticated wolves, and they were domesticated. I know that my guys can't be domesticated because they won't solve problems, number one. They won't feel rewarded for what they do, number two. And number three, they're going to sit back and wait for other people to bring them their food, other people to let them out and take a shit, other people to allow them to go out there and have sex. So my lone wolves need to know they can go out there and do all that and do it in the wolf pack because they can do more, have more, and actually feel better about it. So the wolves that I have in my world of home services need to know that, because if they don't, all the problems start coming back to me and my company. And today I get to work on my business, not in my business as much, because these guys know that they are out there to take care of the customer. They are rewarded for taking care of the customer. They are rewarded financially. They are rewarded personally, and they are also satiated. So they aren't out there taking care of customers. They're going back to their families and they're providing for their families and making themselves better. But they need to know that they're part of something bigger. They're part of the wolf pack, and with the wolf pack, they can do better.
Do you think this philosophy translates to other industries?
I think it absolutely translates to other industries, because I look back at a time when I had a bunch of programmers who worked for me, and I used to bring them in and do the whole big training thing, and this is what the meeting, and we would all be focused on this stuff, and you could just see those guys, the last thing they wanted to do, and it was women, it was men, it was 30-somethings to 50-somethings and all across the board. They did not want to be in the meeting unless they knew that what they went back to do was going to be part of something bigger. So I translated in corporate America to them saying, what your guys are doing today is going to make our company better, because we're going to have better information in the right hands, and we're going to keep ourselves away from things. The things we were keeping ourselves away from before I left happened to be the real estate crisis, which is pretty cool. And those guys started to see that what we were doing was providing some really cool information that they didn't know, and I had to go back and tell them, is that the CEO, using our reports, was able to make decisions that kept the bank I worked for at the time away from a lot of big problems. So I used to go back and tell them, hey, look, because of all that work you guys just did, this is what the outcome was. And you can see
it always comes back to a sense of purpose, doesn't it?
Purpose.
I mean, you think about if you're a new mom or a dad and you've got the little kid that is constantly asking why. And then as a dad, you're like, because I told you to. You don't give them the answer they want, because they'll end up asking why endlessly. But that translates to adulthood too. You can have a job and you'd be given a job and you can do your job. But if you know why you're doing your job, there's a good chance you're going to do it a lot better. So I'm assuming that you're going back to training the lone wolves. That training has a lot to do with the why piece of it.
Exactly.
And I do know that I know for a fact, you actually do have training classes on technique. And I don't know if that's just to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Absolutely not. Okay. I'll tell you why.
All right.
So my lone wolves will come in and I train them around customer service, because that's, as you and I both talk about, we're customer service freaks.
Freaks.
Capital F on the freak bomb.
Yeah, so they're all capital letters.
But if I just train around that, then it's blah, 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 when can I go back to work? Blah, 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 when can I go back to work? So I know that good training is I get to do that. But if I don't leave them with a way for them to do their job better and to show off their craft and their artistry better, they will not accept that first thing. So we always do that.
You just, maybe it was a previous podcast, you actually said everybody knows how to do all. You're good at these things, but they're all better. So what do you bring?
I'm good at what I do,
yeah.
But they are better. So I bring in other experts, or I'll bring in other videos to show them tips and techniques. Or we'll say, hey, look, this new tool just came out, and we're trying to get Milwaukee Tool to come in and show them some of the new tools they have. And that's going to be part of their reward is Milwaukee Tool will show off a little bit of thing. I brought in Simpson Strong Ties, which is the deck building tool that you use for the world. I don't want to get into all the details.
They're pretty badass, though.
They are badass.
Yeah.
Because they've been around for a long time. I brought them in along with the supplier, and we talked about deck codes.
They'd make a great sponsor.
I think Simpson Strong Ties needs to have me as a sponsor.
I just said they're badass. I mean, that should be enough. Write that down.
So just in case you guys didn't know who started it, it's Park Simpson. And I am writing him down, and Simpson Strong Ties will be sponsoring us soon. But the training, the technical piece of this is big. So you're right. I can't teach them to do drywall better. I can't teach guys how to hang doors better, or to install a hot water heater better, or to install a Trane air conditioning unit better. But Trane and A.O. Smith and Kohler and all the other different providers of these materials have great technical training. Show it to those guys. They're experiential learners. Let them get their hands on it. Let them try it out. Find an area where it's a safe environment, not in front of their peers, where they get a chance to try everything out. But if you do that for them, then they're going to remember, hey, don't forget to call your customer 30 minutes ahead. Okay, don't forget to go ahead and text somebody and let them know you're going to be coming back from Home Depot and you're going to get there in about 30 minutes.
So you have a training meeting once a week, month?
No, we can't do once a week. That's a little bit too much because those guys will get a little worn out. But if we go more than 3 weeks, we know we've gone too long.
Okay.
So we try to keep it every other week to stay consistent with these guys because most of our team is out there and they are.
Do they all start at the office before they go out?
So our team does not start
Okay.
at the office. They start from the house because I'm trying to give back to them. They get to rev up the engines. We have iPads, so we have processes that they have to follow to get themselves ready to rock and roll. But they get to start from their house and into their house. And that way I'm trying to let them know that I respect their time. So instead of starting from my office, they get to start from their house.
So once every 2 weeks, they do come into the office and there's a training that lasts how long?
We make sure it only lasts 1 hour because that's all they can take. These guys who were in high school, we all know these guys. They were not the people who were going to go off to college, go off and get their PhD. I'm not saying they're any less or more smart. In fact, that's a big part of our training is that, as a matter of fact, they bring extraordinary activities because they're remarkable people every day in people's houses because they are doing things that you can't do in the house. They have the skills, the tools, and the time to do something in your house that you couldn't do. So I don't care if you're a rocket scientist putting a guy in the moon. If you couldn't do your drywall, and my guy can, he is just as good as you are.
You know, my brother-in-law is a sheet metal worker, never went to college, probably has the highest IQ of anybody I've ever known.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of that. And I think, again, that's another big part is you need to appreciate the skills and the artistry of what you have in your team and let them know that you appreciate and they can demonstrate it.
So you have this meeting once every 2 weeks. It's for an hour, and you're thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're coming to the meeting looking forward to picking up a tip or maybe getting exposed to a new tool. But while they're there, you're actually going to infuse them with a little bit more customer service, culture training that they may not even be thinking that they're coming to get, but they're going to get it when they're there.
Ed, pause.
Why do we have to pause with that? Oh, because it sounded like a weenie beer just opened.
It was a little weedy beer.
Let me stop for a minute and talk about the Home Service Institute. This is a company I started because I saw the need for building a great culture within your company around customer experience and helping our home service technicians understand that by following this customer service style, this is going to help them not only make more money, but get rewarded more for what they did and also get a chance to demonstrate their artistry and what they're doing. It's an amazing program. A series of videos that you can use in your own company, along with some talking points to allow you to hammer in those points for your customer service technicians to make it a great day and a great customer experience. That's the homeserviceinstitute.com. The same passion I'm bringing to this podcast is the same passion you're going to get out of the videos that we've created. They're going to help build a culture of your company that puts the customer first and lets them know They are getting a 5-star, 110% customer service satisfaction. So go out and check out thehomeserviceinstitute.com and get those videos involved and integrated into your training programs you have today. And if you don't have a training program today, we'll help you build that, because there's no time like the present to build that great training program. So give us a call at thehomeserviceinstitute.com or go check us out online at thehomeserviceinstitute.com. That phone number again is 678-536-3473. That's 678-536-3473. And after this, I'm going to get back after it, and Alan and I are going to have a great time.
So you just said the words, Alan, they look forward to training. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. I don't think any of them are looking forward to training. And that's the hesitancy I had putting this in place in the first. I knew they didn't want to be there. Hell, I didn't want to be there. I get there at 7:30 in the morning. It's usually in the morning. And here in home services, Mondays suck for us because we usually are pretty hectic and there's a lot of changes that happen. On Fridays, everybody's looking forward to the weekend. So we do it in the middle of the week. We try to provide an environment that's welcoming. So we'll provide food. We have the music pumping up. We'll show videos of work we've done just to let them all know they're part of something bigger. Even my most seasoned, grizzled guys told me, even after a year of us doing training, I get why you do it now. I know why you repeat yourself. I understand. It's actually made me better, and I appreciate what you're doing. Wow, that took a ton. What did he appreciate so much? He appreciated that when I brought them in, I don't browbeat them. I actually have my service manager talk most of the time. I sit in the back. And if you watch a wolfpack, you'll know that the alpha male sits back and lets everybody else do their thing.
You're the big stag up on the hill watching over the herd.
Alan, exactly. I finally got appreciated for that exact phrase. I want everybody to know that. But no, I feel like as the alpha dog, you got to sit back and let everybody else show who they are, because they will hunt more. They will do better, and they will make sure that the whole wolf pack gets better if you sit back instead of barking at them the whole time and showing them what they ought to be doing. You sit back and let them talk.
Do you give a little bit of an overview on the company performance, though?
Every time they get together, we talk about how great we're doing. Or, you know what, we're going into the winter months. Hey, things are going to be a little slower, guys. This is the time to start making hay for your Christmas bonuses and for other things. And then when things are cranking, guys, we got more work than we know what to do with. You want to work a Saturday? It's right here. Let's go. Because the marketing's working. Or I'll show some pictures of us, letting them know that the sales weenies are actually out there working on a Saturday. I have them at home shows, or we'll do other festivals. Just let them know they're all part of something bigger.
In this particular industry, your technicians, do they readily admit that they need help, or do they act like they know everything? So, for example, you've got somebody who's and I know you've got some specialization, but you're looking for people who have multiple skills. Somebody who can do drywall, and then they can also do other things. So let's say they kind of suck at drywall, but they pretend like they don't. I mean, are they going to let you know that they need help, or do you have to find out the hard way?
You find out the hard way with these guys because, again, with confidence comes a little bit of exuberance. So you want to be confident, not cocky. You probably heard this from your parents. We all have, probably. At least I did a ton. Perhaps I might have been a little cocky, not confident.
Yeah, no, I never heard that.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
All right, I got a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those guys, they will tell you when they get really stuck, because we give them the outlet now, where we say, look, you got that customer who is being unreasonable. You run into something that's way bigger than what one person can do. We have a team behind you. Let's get involved. Let's look at it.
You're making it okay for them to raise their hand for help.
It's okay. But in training, when I sit there and I put up a picture and I say, we don't do drywall over a stove without covering it, right? And you see, I have this picture because the customer is pissed. Like, your guy was a nice guy, bud. Come out here and take a look. So I went out there, bud, and look what I looked at, bud. I looked at butt work is what I looked at. Guy had drywall dust everywhere. I put the picture up in front of training. He's sitting front and center, and he's looking around going, that's right, guys, we don't do that.
And it was the guy who did it.
It was the guy who did it. So in training our lone wolves, what I realized was you praise publicly, you reprimand privately.
That is a universal regardless of industry.
So there you go. Praise publicly, reprimand privately. However, if you want to get a point across to everybody, create an inanimate object. So we created Tommy Toolbox. He's a cartoon character. And Tommy is our Tommy Tech. And Tommy Tech has his hands in his pockets, his hair's undone.
Tommy's not he's not a top of the pack.
He's the bottom of the pack.
Okay.
In fact, we have him on the wall in our training room. And we have all of our pictures of our team on the wall in our training room. And he has been there. And his tenure has been too long. So we use the inanimate Tommy Tech to talk about this. So the next time we had a problem where a guy did a small sink fixture repair and didn't tighten things up, and it was just a small leak, quote unquote, we said Tommy left a small leak. And the customer had the tissue paper down there picking up the small leak. And when we asked Tommy about it, Tommy said it was just a small leak. And what do we all know about small leaks, everybody? And then they all just yell back, they become leaks. Right, because a leak's a leak. These guys know this stuff. So we use that. So that's another thing. You can never call it a wolf, because if you call it a wolf in front of every other wolf, he becomes a dog. He becomes a domesticated dog. You've just demasculated him, you or her, it doesn't matter. And it's really bad. So we know is that inanimate helps train these guys a lot better, because you wanted to get that across. Hey, we all know to put up drop cloths when you're doing drywall repair over the stove. And so the other phrase we use all the time is you treat your house like grandma's house.
Yeah, I use grandma a lot for examples. Yeah.
Right? Not like your house. You treat it like grandma's house. Because my grandmother, if I came in and I put my tools where she was cooking her pasta, she'd let me know right away.
Back of the head of the rolling pin, I'd imagine.
It was coming fast.
Yeah.
Duck and run, big boy. Duck and run. So we can't do that. So training everybody, and again, can that translate to other industries? Absolutely. Do you think if you get everybody together and you make fun of this one person who's not part of your group, but yet you're trying to get a point across to somebody else, they all take it better?
It goes back to, we talked about Truett Cathy at Chick-fil-A, the philosophy of trying to catch people doing things right and making a big deal out of it publicly, because then they're going to, number one, feel good. They're going to want to be caught doing something right again. And other people are going to want to get caught doing something right. So it's a very positive approach, but it's tough when you've got your own business and you're looking at the bottom line and you see somebody doing something wrong. You end up always looking at the negatives because it's just right in front of your face. It's actually a very disciplined thing that you're doing. It's looking for the things that are done right, and you're publicly praising them and being very careful about the things that you want to correct.
Yeah, I think that's huge, because you want to let them know, number one, they're part of something bigger. Mm-hmm. That, we give back to our community. They love doing that. One of the best activities we ever had was cooking at the Ronald McDonald House. We had a bunch of handymen. And I said, hey, we're going to go cook at the Ronald McDonald House. And if you don't know what that is, it's people who come into Atlanta here, they are coming here for usually a cancer treatment or something very, very bad for a kid, which all of us would tear up in a heartbeat if you saw this. And I say, hey guys, we're going to go down there and cook. I had 75% participation.
Wow.
75% of my company said, can't wait to cook. Got a bunch of handymen who couldn't wait to go in there and cook. We were down there, we actually had to do it in stages because we had so many people. And that was so cool.
What did you do? Did you grill up?
No, we actually did pasta.
Okay.
They actually kind of dictate what you wanted to do, which is so cool. And, because we had so many people and it was so easy to do, because you have so many people in the kitchen and cleaning, a lot of them went out there and just talked with everybody. And that was best. And you're like, well, you're a handyman company. How come you guys don't build a house? Well, we can all build a house, but when we get to do this and show off our other artists, which is I got some great cooks, which is great too, but that's a different story. That's a big deal when you get them feeling bigger than themselves. I think the other thing I like to do with these guys is celebrate the culture. I have a thing for me, and the culture is Friday afternoons, once a month, we start grilling out in the back of the office. Stop by. Let's get together. Let's break bread. Let's eat a little bit. I told you I had some great cooks who love doing this stuff. These guys love barbecuing and smoking things, and We bring them in, and then we'll grill up some things and do. I got one guy who has his grandfather's watermelon recipe and seeds from years ago that's only specific to his own grandfather. It's crazy, and we'll do that kind of stuff, and that just builds that sense of community.
He just brings watermelon that they grew. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said a watermelon recipe.
No, he's got this. He has this watermelon thing. The thing's the biggest watermelon I've ever seen in my life, and when you slice it, it's yellow.
That sounds like it's not done.
It tasted really good though, man. I don't know. I thought it was good.
Yeah, because the only
We should do
watermelon
that
recipe I know is you pour a bottle of vodka through a little hole that you cut in the rind.
Oh boy,
Anyway,
that's a good one. We might do that one episode, and that episode will get nuts.
what kind of training, if you could just distill it down to one thing, what's the one thing that you're really trying to get through to these guys over the course of time that maybe is not coming instinctively to most of them?
Number one is the customer experience. 1,000%. You can go out there and be the best drywall guy. You can go out there and next thing you know, they have hot water, they have air conditioning, they have heat, they have a roof over their head. But if the customer experience process wasn't as good as they thought, the customer's going to just kind of shrug their shoulders today and go, that's not what I expected. Because our customers don't know what to expect today. And when you're working with homeowners and doing this stuff, the expectations are all across the board. So what I let them know is that you follow this process, which is contact the customer 30 minutes before the intended appointment. Show up with tools in hand. Greet the customer with what you know best. That's your first name. We have a whole checklist on what they need to do. Make sure you confirm the work order. Make sure you get to their signature. It says you can start the job. Get the job started. Do the job. Start and do something. Don't just run away and go get materials. Or I can go on and on and on and on and on, and we'll do it. But I would tell those guys is that part makes your 5 o'clock or your 6 o'clock or your 4 o'clock, whatever that time is, makes it great because you get to show off your artistry. You got to get rewarded for what you did. And you know what? They probably patted you on the back and maybe even gave you a tip and said, man, great job.
And the thing that drives me crazy about even having to have this conversation is we're all customers. And you and I don't know if we've mentioned it, we're customer service freaks.
Capital F, reek.
And absolutely every one of us knows, oh, I've got some service coming to my house, fixing my refrigerator, whatever it is. They're going to give me a window. They give you the window, and then they never hit the window. And every one of us knows, it would have been really nice if they'd have just given me a call ahead of time. And yet, when it comes time for you to provide a service, why isn't that instinctive to anybody?
It's so big that you talk about this. So what I do is I share with my guys the 3 secrets of the customer, which I put in my book.
Did you really write a book?
I wrote a book. It's called From the Zoo to the Wild.
Oh.
Your Guide to Entrepreneurial Freedom and Wealth, sponsored by. In the book, though, we talk about the 3
Not
secrets.
sponsored by an insurance company based on what we've learned.
Yeah, not happening.
No.
Number 1, instant gratification. The customer expects the transaction to be completed at the time the transaction is supposed to be completed. Just because you called me 2 months ago and I showed up today, even though you accepted the estimate a week ago, customer still thinks it's been 2 months. I expect that transaction to be completed today. In our instant gratification world, you and I will both agree we do not want to go back to simpler times. We do not want to churn our own butter. We do not want to have to get on a party phone. We do not want to have to send up smoke signals. We like our cell phones to know instantly the scores of the games and what's going on with our world. Our customers are the same way. Instant gratification, number 1. Number 2, we know that people buy from people who like them. So be likable. Smile a little bit. It's not your personality because you want to get there and go off and show how artistry you are, how good you can be at things. Smile. Let them know you're there. Number 2. Number 3, let them know how much the changes or the ads are going to be or the removals are going to be. Because if you don't, the customer will always double how much it's going to be off, and they will have how much more you're going to add.
That sounds like crazy math to me. Walk me through
It's
that.
crazy math,
Yeah.
and you need to hear this because this has been one of the hardest things. Again, I put this in the book because it's so hard to understand, but I've watched it over and over and over. So if I come to you and I'm coming to fix your hot water heater, and I'm going to replace it, Alan, I have to replace your hot water heater. You're like, okay, I'm thinking that's going to take another $500. Sorry, Alan, that's actually going to be another $1,000. Why? Well, because the cost of the hot water heater, I got to put an expansion tank on, I got to do all this other stuff. So I make sure that we write it down and you look at it. And you don't like it, but you go, I guess that's the number. But if our technician goes, the office will bill you later, you're mentally thinking, yeah, $500. I'm good. Customers will always double the discount or have how much is going to be added to the work order. And when you say, hey, I went there, I'm looking at it, looks like we don't have to replace the hot water heater, I can just make a repair here. You're like, awesome, it's going to be $50. What? No, I mean, the parts alone is going to be $50 to $100. We're probably going to be about $300. So the guy has to present the number back to them to help set that expectation, because expectations set mean you can expectations exceed. And that's a big point for us here, especially in home services.
Have you ever done something as simple as teach your people to say, hey, Chris, to replace your water heater is going to be $1,000. Let it sit. The good news is, I think I can fix it for $300.
We work on the way you present it with options, depending on who you have in front of you, which is really hard. So we'll say, especially for us, because we don't do hot water heaters, but for us indoors,
Okay.
it is, I can fix this door or I can replace the door. The replacement of the door, I just got back off the phone with the office, we're probably looking at anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, depending on the type of door. I think I can repair this side and paint it, and it would be $500. You decide what you want to do now.
Yeah.
And so we give them options. But that training comes a long way, because these guys, now I'm putting them in the sales role. And for our artists, sales is a dirty word. Think about every great painter, every great composer, every great artist out there. They didn't go out there and sell themselves. They let their art sell them for them.
It usually sold after they died.
Right? So I don't want my guys dying either.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought the same thing too.
Illustration.
I don't want my guys to die. I want my guys to live.
Have you found, though, that if you have a tech who can sell, they're much more effective than a salesperson?
1,000% more. You will always buy more off of the guy who actually is taking care of you.
Because you believe them because they're the expert, not
Right.
just some guy.
They have
who's
calluses on their hands.
Yeah.
They have struck the notes. They have done whatever. They show you what they can do. And from the showing you what they can do, demonstrating their artwork, which is what we talk about. When you get there to the job, demonstrate you know what you're doing. And then the customer will understand when additional work has to be done, that it's going to cost this much more because you know better.
Because when a customer, I think, is just dealing with a salesperson, no matter what they're selling, they have their guard up because they know that person's there to sell. And so, okay, I got to negotiate. Are they going to take advantage of me? Is this going to be a ridiculous price? Am I going to be able to say no when they're trying to get me to say yes? But yeah, when it's the artist, it's the technician in there. I mean, they're the expert and they tell you it's going to be X. You just assume that they're telling the truth.
But the hard part is getting your technician to sell it up a little bit, because they think sales is a dirty word. My art alone should have sold itself. You should be appreciating what I'm doing. So I have to teach these guys that they can't appreciate it until you tell them what it's going to cost to appreciate what you're doing.
Nobody's going to see your art if it isn't sold first.
I agree. I mean, you can't put it away. So it's got to be out there. And that's a big piece, because I don't want these guys to be salesmen. And if you think about back to running your own business, you want everybody to be a salesman. No, you don't. You want people to go out there and fulfill that promise, that brand promise you had put out there in the first place. And if you were the first salesman, which you usually are in the beginning, you want them to fulfill what you just said. And when they do that, there's additional work that can happen. So I don't train these guys to sell. I train these guys to pick it up a little bit while they're there, because they can get rewarded for their own work that they're doing and show off to everybody what's going on.
So your primary thing that you're sneaking training in on these guys under the guise of you get to play with a new tool is the customer experience.
1,000%.
But somewhere along the line, you're also throwing in a little sales training.
Yes. Because I know it helps them at the end of the day. And so you say, well, how do you know it helps them? All right, here's the big thing. Those guys know that maybe I'm not as good as they are working on houses, but every once in a while, and I put this in the book, every once in a while, you got to be a pirate, and you got to be the pirate ship leader, and you're not a servant leader, and you got to unfurl that sword and you got to nick them on the ear and let them know, you might know a little bit more about something that's going to help them make some more money. Because if you can prove to your lone wolves that they can make more and have more bounty with you because you know more than them, then they will stay with you longer. Because they need to know that you know a little bit more than them about something. And it might not be that specific technical piece, but you know more about their business and can get them there, get them to their personal and professional goals faster. So every once in a while you have to pull out the sword and let them know, I'm still in charge here.
You're Captain Barbosa. When you talk about them making more money, is it because they're getting more work, which is also more hours, or is it more dollars per hour, being more efficient? What are we talking about?
We're talking about maximizing their time.
Okay.
And that is making more per hour than they would have made before. For that same effort, I have guys who are Boy Scout leaders. I have guys who coach baseball. I have guys who coach basketball. They get to do that on the weekends and still make the money they want to make during the week, where on their own, they used to have to work Saturdays and sometimes Sundays just to make ends meet. So we tell them, you come here, you have a little bit easier life. You don't have to sit there on the weekends and factor up invoices and send bills and go collect checks. That if you do your work the way we want you to do your work and get it done, then we take credit cards online and we take all these payments online and we'll make sure that we get paid. And you get to go home and go, I did a good job today.
So you're saying a lot of your training is not necessarily on how to do, but it's on efficiency when it comes to actual technique.
We do talk a lot about efficiency. There are a lot of ways to be better at it. And the minute you think you're a 10 in something, 1 out of 10 being, 10 being the best,
Right.
is the minute you did not get there. Most of our best guys would say they're 7s, right there, a little bit less than, but I can get better. We can all get better. We all know that there's probably a different way to do drywall. I had to go to school on drywall. I know I've talked about this a lot, but it's really an art. It really is. And I've seen guys be able to do it wet, and I have to do it dry. And if you know what I'm talking about, great. If you don't, then you can email me at chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. Otherwise, you probably don't give a shit. So
most of my business experience has been in sales. And usually when you have salespeople, the best ones crave feedback. They don't want to be left alone. They want to learn how to sell better. They want you to demonstrate it. My guess is in your industry, you probably run across some folks who just don't want you to tell them how to do their job.
I agree with that. There are people who love and crave feedback, like your salespeople that you mentioned before. The guys in the home service industry, well, as long as you're making my life easier and I can make more per hour, more per day, more per week, I'm listening to you on this other stuff. I'll buy into it. But if all you're going to do is jam down my throat, you got to call the customer, you got to show up on time, you got to do all this stuff the way we're supposed to be doing it, you got to figure out all this other stuff. If you're going to give me all this process, then fuck you, man, I'm out of here. And I think more of that happens because they become domesticated dogs. And they're like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm supposed to be this lone wolf. So they'll take the feedback when it's put together the right way. And that's a big piece because you don't want to throttle them down. And then with my sales team, I do bring them in every week. They do want to hear this.
Oh, they can get pumped up so easily. You show them the right video, you tell them the right story, and they're just...
Totally different personality too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my sales team comes in every week. And we'll talk about, let's dissect this job. Let's look at this because we look at so many different things.
Overcoming objections, all that stuff.
We'll put who got the most sales this week, and he gets to put the peacock headdress on. I mean, the whole thing. He's our peacock of the week.
I don't even want to say what just came through my mind. So,
yeah.
So you talked earlier about praising publicly and criticizing
privately,
and this whole podcast is about training lone wolves.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have the stereotype that these guys are pretty stubborn. I don't know why I have that. So the private criticism, how have you learned to deliver it?
All of my criticism comes across very soft shoot. I never, especially if they're at a customer.
So you're like, hey, can you pop in my office? I got something I want to cover.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say the minute I say something to them about the way they did their job, I immediately get, well, let me tell you why. And I'm getting, okay, you're not going to accept this then. And so usually that's when Captain Barbosa, or I like to say Captain Jack Sparrow, pulls out his sword and says, I know how to do this shit, right? So when you
Is
tell
this
me
with the appropriately placed F-bomb? Is that where
I
this
do.
comes in?
I go, I know how to do this shit. So let's just talk straight for a minute. And then they go, okay. I said, are we on the same page? Well, no excuses. Are we on the same page or not? And, I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but I did see the work you did. And I don't care if the customer was chirping at you or you couldn't get this up or your helper was doing something wrong. This is for you. And then I either have them with me or I don't have them with me. You can't chirp too hard. You can't be too heavy-handed. But I have done that because this is where the captain can pull the sword and say, hang on, right? Don't bullshit me. This is what we're doing. You want to be man to man? Good. And I would tell you that I've had a lot of guys opt out with that one. That is the hardest I've ever been. Usually I'm a little easier going because I get, like, sometimes I saw some pictures from a customer. They're all ticked off and I looked at something and I went, the job wasn't that bad. I think this customer is just, so we'll send somebody else out. We'll get that all fixed.
But my assumption is that over a period of time, I've gotten 3 drywall complaints in a row on this same guy. I mean, there's something that needs to be addressed.
We absolutely hit that one. So 1 or 2 things in a row. Oh, actually, one thing we let them know, hey, look, this happened. You got to go back and take care of it yourself. And that is a huge reinforcer for the lone wolf because nobody wants to go back and fix their shit, right?
Right.
So the second one, if it happens again.
It's embarrassing and expensive.
Yeah. 1, embarrassing, expensive, won't do it again. 2, kind of off your game, what's going on? And we'll start with that question, like, this isn't like you, man. What's up? I usually start that way, and that's a great question. Because if they tell you, then good. If they say everything's good, then you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then when you start going after them about maybe addressing something you saw, and you're like looking at this going, and you're shrugging your shoulders going, nobody in the world would have ever left it like this. What are you thinking? Of course, I don't say it like that. And they start giving you excuses. You're like, my favorite line is this. If you had a kid, 1 reason's a reason. 2 reasons, you're just in excuse mode now, and I'm done listening. All I hear is blah, 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 excuse. Blah, 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 excuse. So that's a hard part, training, especially in the home service world. And again, back to training anybody, or, when something goes wrong, or in corporate America, when maybe there was a meeting that didn't go the right way, or maybe a customer called in to complain about the service you were providing, and you try to find out what's going on. I think it's up to you to find out the truth, and there's always 2 sides to it. And as my grandmother used to say, if you want to get to the truth, Christopher, you have to get both liars in the room. Sometimes with a customer, you can't do that.
I love your grandma.
She was good.
She make a good pizza?
She made amazing pizzas.
Did she make a grandma's pizza? Like the thick, the...
So now that we're talking about food, because we're going to wrap this episode up, let's talk food for a minute. Not only could she make good Sicilian pie that you cut with scissors, because she was Sicilian, but raised in America on a very, very cheap budget. She could make sauce last for days. And she could make some amazing stuff. I still have a recipe.
Did you learn how to make her sauce?
I did. I do. In fact, I love cooking today. And the sauce I've got, I lost her bread recipe. I still can't get it recreated.
Oh, my gosh.
Especially here in the South. I'm having a tough time with it.
Flour's different.
I don't know if it's the flour. Well, it's
the flour is different between north and south.
And it's the me giving up. I was like, okay, I've had enough. But she used to buy the cheapest ingredients and would just make absolute artist out of it. So, and that's why I appreciate artistry. She could make the best pasta sauce, or she says suku, out of the cheapest stuff from Bell's up in Buffalo, New York. And I think you can all do that. And so if you're an artist and you're really passionate about your craft, you get the right tools, you can do it. But even with the wrong tools, you can still make it happen.
I think that's a good note to end this one on.
Let's end this one.
All right.
All right, everybody.
See you next time.
Go out there and have some pasta and pizza and be an artist.
Cheers.
Cheers, Alan. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Remember, your positive attitude will help you achieve that higher altitude you're looking for in the wild world of small business ownership. And until next time, make it a great day to get your